Okay, now that you have Onshape set up with your own account, hopefully you've written down your password or you remember it, and make sure you are signed in. This is some of the great work that you can do with this program. We're going to start very simple. So sign in, and it can take some time to load, so be patient. Okay, there's my information there. Sign in. And once you do sign in, you will see any previous work that you've done. Obviously, if this is your first time really using the program, you won't see any previous work. But we are going to start with some very basic parts. And we're going to take those parts and we're going to turn them into let me remove this, send to trash. Okay. We are going to turn them into an assembly like this. It's really nothing special, but we're going to start simple. Okay, so we're going to start by clicking on create, and we're going to choose document, and we need to give this document a name. So I'm just going to call it first parts, and then click OK. And once you do that, it's going to open up our workspace. All right, you'll notice down here at the bottom, it says Part Studio and Assembly. Okay, we're going to be using both of those in this video. The Part Studio is essentially where you're going to store all the parts that you make individually, and the assembly is where you're going to put them all together, which is kind of interesting. All right, so to simplify things, I want to just, for this video, I just want to work on one of these three planes here. You can have the front, right, or top. We are going to choose to work with the top plane, and I don't really need to see the other two planes. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here, and as I roll up and down these three options here, you'll see a little eye appear, and that's a visibility eye. Okay, so for the front and the right, I'm going to just kind of make those invisible. So just click on the eye to hide it, and then do the same thing for the right. Click on the eye to hide it. And now we just have the top plane. It makes the surface look a little less complicated and cluttered. All right, so I want to make my first sketch. All right, we do all parts start from a sketch, and then we turn them three-dimensional by extruding typically. All right, so I'm going to click on sketch over here in the upper left-hand corner. And it doesn't do anything at first because you need to tell it where you want to sketch the plane. So you need to hover over the top. You'll see that it turns yellow on the border. Click on top, and now it knows you're going to make a sketch on that top plane. Okay. Right now, if I sketch it, it's going to kind of have it turned in a isometric way. Just to make it a little easier, I'm going to go over here to my view cube, and I'm going to click on top. And that way it turns my work towards me. It makes it a little more simple to draw. As you get better with this program, you probably won't have to do that. You can just draw right on the surface and see it three-dimensionally. And we'll do that in some of the other parts we make for this. Okay. So you could give this sketch a name. I'll call this block. Okay. And there we go. Okay. So let me go back to block. Okay, so now I'm going to draw a rectangle. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of start anywhere. And notice this rectangle tool is probably the one you're going to use more than just about anything. All right, so I'm going to just start somewhere, draw it, and click. Okay, now if you're proficient with this program, you could just start typing the dimensions and then hitting tab to go to the next dimension. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to click on this dimension tool and then just click on this side and pull my mouse up. Okay, I just clicked and moved my mouse up, and then click on the number. And I'm going to just type in what I want. I'm going to put 4 inches. So since our program is set by default to inches, I can just type a 4 without inches afterwards, and it'll automatically go to 4 inches. And then do the same thing over here. All right, hit enter, and then you have a 4x4 square. Okay. By the way, I'm zooming in and out by using my scroll wheel. Okay. If you click and hold your right mouse button, you can rotate like this. I'm going to go back to top though. And then if you want to pan or move everything around, sliding it, you click and hold down your scroll wheel as a button. Okay. Again, you're much better off having a mouse with this. You can do this with a trackpad, but it's a lot harder. So please get a mouse to use for this. A cheap one is usually just fine. Okay, so now that I've got my dimensions and I've got my part looking or my sketch looking the way it needs to be, I'm going to click this OK. Okay, and now it's ready to go. Now I want to look at this three-dimensionally, so I'm going to go back over where this little cube is and click the down arrow, and I'm going to choose isometric. We know from 7th grade that isometric means three-dimensional. All right, and it pops it into three-dimensional view. All right, so we have our sketch. Let's extrude it into 3 dimensions. This button is also very common. Click on the extrude button, and nothing will happen until you click and tell the computer what you want to extrude. So click on that square, and you can see it automatically extrudes it up by default 1 inch. Okay, let's change that by clicking on it and just type in 2 and then hit the check key or the green button for extrude, and there you go. If you click on it again, it'll take you out of extrude mode, and now you've got your first part. Okay, so let's add another part because we're going to kind of make this into an assembly. All right, so remember your dimensions. You had 2 inches tall, 4 inches wide. Okay, because we'll use that in a second. So let's take a different look at a different sketch. Okay, go back to sketch. We're going to add a new part, so we want to add a sketch here. So sketch, and again, we have to select the top plane. So hit somewhere outside of the first part and click on the top plane. This time we'll call it, I need to hit the little pen button, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, triangle. Okay. And then I want to just start drawing. Okay, so I'm going to click on the line tool this time. Okay, not the rectangle. I'm going to draw a triangle. And I'm going to move it over to the side here. I'm going to just start drawing a triangle. I'm not worried about the dimensions right now. I just need to make sure that I click at every corner. And the other thing, you have to make sure that you get that box around that vertices. Okay, if you don't, your triangle will not be a complete triangle. So once you get to the 3, click it, and then we're going to click on our dimension tool again right here. This is another common tool you'll be using all the time. And we're going to dimension by clicking each side, moving our mouse out, clicking on the number, and let's type this as 4. Enter. And then same thing over here, 4. Enter. 4. Enter. And it automatically turns it into an equilateral triangle because you have all 4 sides the same length. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and say we're done. And then we need to, I'm going to go back to isometric, and I'm going to extrude that. Okay, so click the extrude button, click on the triangle. You have to click on the triangle, otherwise it doesn't know what to extrude. And we're going to do the same thing as the, actually, you know what? Let's just leave it as 1 inch, okay, just so it'll look a little different. All right, click the check mark, and we are done with 2 parts. So now let's make an assembly, okay? So if we go to the assembly tab down here, notice there's nothing here. But what we haven't done is we haven't inserted the parts that we just made. Okay, so let's go to the insert button. All right, and it'll automatically show you the parts from your Parts Studio, which is this tab over here. So here's the two first parts we made. Okay, so click on each one and then click somewhere on your workspace. Click on part 2, click on the workspace. It doesn't really matter where you place them right now. That's fine. You can click more of them if you want, but we're just going to do these 2 for now. Okay. All right, so now that we have them on our workspace, we want to take this assembly and we want to constrain them. We want these parts to be constrained to each other. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this rectangle prism. I want to turn this into like my main part. All right, I'm going to make it so it can't move around because right now I can move it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fix it so that it can't move. So I'm going to right click on it and click fix. Okay, so now when I try to move it, it doesn't go anywhere, and you'll see the little thing pick up there that says this is fixed here. Okay, if you ever wanted to move it, you could right click it and unfix it, but we're going to leave it fixed so it doesn't move. It just makes it easier to work with everything. So now let's make some mates. Mates are a way of constraining one object to another. Okay, and the most common mate you'll probably use is this planar mate. Okay, it's going to mate 2 sides together. Okay, so once you click on the planar mate right here, you're going to click on one side here and one side here. Okay, and you can see it pops it to it. Okay, click that, and there you go. So now what it's done though is it's kind of put the triangle inside, and that doesn't really help us much. What we wanted to do was place it like on the side of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to choose a different way of fixing this. So I'm going to undo. All right. And by the way, you can always do that. This time, I'm going to move this out this way, and I'm going to mate this side to this side. Okay. So go to the mate tool, click on this face, and then click on this face, and you can see it added it without pushing the triangle through it. Okay, and then click on the check mark. All right, so this is mated with these 2 surfaces. The problem is I can still move this around. It stays on that surface, but I'm able to move it in all these different directions. Okay, so I want to fix that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to again choose a planar mate, click on this face and click on this face, and then ignore that it does that ignore that it puts it all the way over there. Just click on the check mark, and you'll see that now when I move it, it's stuck to the top. That's what I wanted. Okay, so it's stuck to the side here, and then it's stuck parallel with the top because we mated it that way. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is make it so it can no longer slide at all. I want it to mate so that this corner matches up with this corner. Okay, here and here. All right, and we're going to use a different type of mate for that called the tangent mate. You'll commonly use the tangent mate with circles, but we're going to use it in this case too. Okay, so click on the tangent mate. All right, we're going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to choose this edge, and I'm going to choose this edge, and then click the check mark. Okay, so now as I scroll out, now it can't move at all because this part is fixed and this part is mated in 3 different ways or constrained in 3 different ways to this part. It can no longer move at all. So now you've got your first assembly. So you can see it kind of looks like a roof that's partially made on top of a box. But what if I wanted that roof to extend a little bit further? I can actually go back to my Parts Studio, and I can find out where I extruded that triangle. So if I go to extrude and double click it, I can go back and change this to 2. and then click the OK button, go back to your assembly, and it automatically fixes what you just did. Okay, so it any changes you make in the Part Studio will then apply to the assembly, and that's what's kind of cool about this program and CAD software like it. Okay. Again, if you want to go back to your old way that you had it, you can just do the back button. Oop. You actually have to do that in the Part Studio. We're not going to do that. We're going to leave it just how it is. Okay. So let's add a few more features to this. Let's say I want to add a rod through here and kind of make it look like a birdhouse. Let me go back to the Part Studio. All right. And I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make a dowel, which is like a round piece of wood, and I am going to make a hole in the middle of this block. Okay. So let's start with the hole in the block. Go back to Sketch. And this time, instead of clicking on the plane, we're actually going to click on the face of this block. So click on the face of the block. You notice how the sketch is now going to be kind of in the same plane as the top of this block. And let's go to the circle tool. That's another tool you'll commonly use. And I'm not really worried about where it is. I'm just going to click somewhere in the middle here, make a circle that looks about right, and then click. All right. What I want to do though is I want to make this a certain amount, a certain diameter. So right now it shows, if I scroll in, it shows 2.029. Let's say make that more exact. So hopefully you guessed by now that we're going to use the dimension tool. Click on the dimension tool and then click on the outside of the circle. All right. Right now it's set to that amount. Once I click again, I can change that to a more exact amount. So I'm going to change it to 2 and then enter. Okay, it didn't really look like it changed much, but it did decrease the size just ever so slightly. So that's good. I'm not worried about where it is on the block. I just want it to be exactly 2 inches in diameter. Okay, then finish off your sketch by clicking on the check mark. All right. And then we are going to extrude this. Okay, so go to the extrude button. Click on the circle. You know, if it doesn't extrude anywhere and you're wondering why not, well, you have to tell what you want extruded. So click on the circle. And right now it's got it extruding up. I don't want that. I want it to extrude down because I want it to be a hole. All right. So instead of having it on add, move over here to remove. And it's going to remove some material. Right now it's set to 1 inch, which is only going to go halfway through. I want it to go all the way through. So what I'm going to do is change it from blind to through all. Okay. And then hit the check mark. And so now you can see I put a hole through it. So that's good. I've altered my first part. If I go back to my assembly, you can see it'll be altered there as well. All right. But we're not done. Let's go back to the Part Studio. And let's make a little dowel rod to go through there. Okay. So we will go back to the sketch tool and notice I'm no longer using just the top mode. I'm just using from side to side because I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to choose sketch and I'm just going to put it on the top plane here. All right. And I'm going to start with a circle again because I'm making a dowel rod, which is circular cylinder. Okay. And I'm not really worried where. I'm just going to click over here and make a circle. I'm not worried about size yet because I can fix it right here. Click on the dimension tool. Click on the outer circumference of the circle. Pull your mouse out and click again. And we're going to match it to that hole and type in 2 inches. Enter. All right. Done with that sketch. And hopefully by now you've guessed we are going to extrude this. So use the extrude button. Click on the circle. And right now it's extruding up 1 inch. I want it to be a little further. Let's make it 4 inches. Enter. Okay. And then finish your extrusion. You can always change all these things by using your menu over here. All right, so if you wanted to change your first triangle, you can do that by double clicking here. You can double click the extrude to change the triangle extrusion size. You can always make changes to it. So what's nice about a program like this is just by hovering over these things, you can see the different features that you can go back and change, and they will change them all in the assembly. So let's finish off our assembly by going back to the assembly tab. You'll notice that the cylinder or the dowel rod is not here yet. Okay, I have not inserted that into my assembly. I need to do that. So click insert, and choose part 3, which is my cylinder. Okay, and I want to place the cylinder into the hole I made in the box here. Okay, so we're going to use yet another type of mate. And again, all the mates are listed here. You can always choose different ones and try them. If it doesn't work, you can undo. But we are going to do this mate right here called the slider mate. Okay, so click on the slider mate. And in this case, we need to find the center here and the center here and mate them up together. Okay, so I'm going to start by scrolling in a little bit. I'm going to click on the center. And then I'm going to move over here and find my hole, and I want to find, let me pan over and zoom in a little bit so you can see better. Okay, so it may take some practice, but until you get right in the center of the hole, it's not going to do anything. So move your mouse around until you see this pop up, and that tells you you are in the center of the hole. If you're somewhere over here, it's not going to work. So about where you think the center is, when you see it pop up, click on it, and then click the check mark and watch what happens. Okay, so what we've done is we've put the cylinder into the hole, and it fits perfectly centered because we use that slider tool. Okay, you'll notice that this can still slide in and out. If you wanted to fix it, you can do that pretty easily. Sometimes in assemblies they want to be able to show that it can slide in and out. But if you wanted to set it, like if this were a birdhouse with a perch here, what you could do is go to the planar or the parallel mate. Click on that. Actually, not the parallel mate. We want to use the planar mate. Okay, and you will click on the outside of this and the outside of this. And even though it does something weird like that, ignore it, hit the check mark, and you'll see that now this can no longer move. Okay, so now everything is fixed together no matter what you do. The great thing about this is that I have this nice assembly and I can still go back and make modifications. So if I go back to the Parts Studio, I can find my hole here and make it smaller because, if I'm thinking this as a birdhouse, it doesn't really look right. Like the perch is way too thick. So if I wanted to go back and change that, I can pretty easily. Okay, so I need to find the right parts though. All right, so let's go to my part 3, double click it. And I'm going to, actually what you need to do is you need to go to the sketch. I'm sorry. You need to go to the correct sketch. And the sketch for that was this right here, sketch 2. You can see as I hover over, different ones change different colors. So we're going to go to sketch 2, double click it, and I can actually double click here on the 2 and change it to 0.5 and then check mark. Notice how it's gotten much smaller. Let's show what that looks like in the assembly. In the assembly, it's like it's floating in midair. Why? What have we not done yet? What we haven't done is we haven't decreased the hole size too. Again, this can all be modified, which is what's great about this program. So go back to Parts Studio and find that hole. Okay, so I can just kind of hover over until the correct one lights up. All right, and it shows that this right here, this sketch here is where I need to make the modification. Okay, and right there it shows 0.2. So double click and change it to 0.5. And then You can hit enter on your keyboard or just click the check mark. Let's go back to the assembly, and you can see it has modified it to have a much smaller piece. Okay. If you want that to stick out further, go back to the Part Studio and find the extrusion. Okay, so we want to change the extrusion. I believe it's extrusion 4. Yep, that's what lights up. Double click it, and let's change it to 6 inches. Hit the check mark and check it on your assembly. That looks good. All right. So you can see it's pretty easy to make things. You know, you may think this is a lot of work, but when you think about it, we made 3 separate different parts. We put exact dimensions on them, and we assembled them together so that they stay put in one place. We're now able to make modifications to everything on the fly. It'll change it in the parts and the assembly, and make it so that it's a modifiable assembly in the future. So if you make changes or you increase the size, or whatever you need to do to it, you can still do that. So the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the Onshape logo up here, and what that's going to do is save my work, and you can see it right here under first parts. All right. That way I know I don't lose anything. So go ahead and play with this program a little bit. If you have any time left over, make your own parts, make your own assembly, and you'll find that it's a pretty useful program. So enjoy it.